In last week's episode, I suggested that maybe a pathway to wellness and wisdom is simply being better than average, simply doing less stupid things than average. But the problem with that is that average seems to be dropping. So the average IQ in societies like mine is dropping. The average physical wellness, physical strength, physical fitness is dropping. The average psychological well-being is dropping. So what happens if the average is so low that even being above average still makes you the healthiest person in the hospital?
While my foster father wanders the world picking up litter, I analyse the clinical research. Mid-episode, we pause for the ongoing story of my mother Liz and her friend David, following a lifelong timeline that began in 1970s Sydney.
I've got a suggestion. How about instead of comparing ourselves against average, what we could do is create our own personal minimum acceptable competencies. Attention! Dumping rubbish is prohibited. Area may be under surveillance. Wonder if it's under surveillance. Oh my goodness! It is under surveillance. That's obviously working really well. Do you think you could actually develop your own minimum acceptable competencies, and what would they be? And would that work as a way of actually seeking wellness and wisdom? Is the question itself a pursuit of wisdom? I don't know, I'm not a smart guy, but I'll do some research and we'll find out after I do some blogging.
I'm Trinity Anderson, editor, fact-checker, and this Santa lookalike guy's foster daughter. I usually share some of my mother's history at this point. But during this busy report card time, my foster father will give me a break by narrating today's intermission story. He'll return afterwards to suggest some things that we might do if society's average becomes so low that even being above average is a downhill slide.
Now, I used to dance here. I did a couple of musicals here. Oh no, it's closed. Damn. So I did a couple of musicals here at this butter factory back when in my when was I? Mid 20s. And what was it? It was the Boyfriend in 1920s one, a Charleston one. And I did Little Shop of Horrors. The funny thing is, the best part of this story is the fact that I actually started dancing and acting because I had a flatmate who wanted to be in Manpower, a male stripping group. So he said to me, will you come and learn to dance with me? So I came and learned to dance with him, and he auditioned for Manpower and ended up not getting in because he was too short. Really muscly, powerful, good-looking guy, but he was too short. They didn't want him, and he knew he could never get in. And the interesting part of this story is, and it's sad, is that he then spiraled into depression. And he ended up, I lost track of him for about 10 years. And then eventually I found out that he got over his depression and started working for an organization called Beyond Blue. And he now counsels people on depression. What I learned from that is the concept of always having multiple plans. Thinking of plans in life as like a tree. So you're coming up and you could go out on any of the branches. If one of the branches falls off, like his aspiration to be a male stripper, if that falls off, then you just jump across to the other branch before you fall and hit the ground. I think that's a good analogy. Anyhow, that's the story of the Kingston butter factory. Let's go somewhere else. You might remember that before the intermission, we were talking about comparing ourselves to averages. and the declining averages. The first thing I'm going to talk about is what they call the negative Flynn effect. The Flynn effect is the effect over the 20th century or so where IQs were gradually increasing. So what was happening is that your IQ here at the start of the 20th century was going up like this. Now what's happened recently is that we've had a decline, like the decline in the amount of ink in my pen. So what's happening is that the average person, their IQ is actually going down. They're blaming this on screen time and stuff like that. But what I've observed in schools with diet, I think it's partly diet as well. So if you're a person who tries to keep themselves a bit above the average, so let's say you're sitting here, and up here, you're doing pretty well, you're doing pretty fine. But what happens is that if you can continue to compare yourself to the average, you're starting to decline like this, or maybe even this. Now, what I propose, and this is what I do, is that instead of comparing yourself to others, comparing yourself to some external average, what you do is take some sort of action that is going to create some sort of mental workload, mental friction, like what I'm doing with this Plog vlog. So going out into interesting places, meeting interesting people, and solving problems, learning. So each episode I'm posing a question like this, and then I go out and I have to learn all about it. I think that's giving me extra cognitive load. It's getting me out of the infinite scroll, and hopefully that stops me from going downwards. I really have to get something better to write on, don't I? Anyhow, let's get this. Missed! I would have had a perfect shot if I got it. That addresses cognitive decline, but it doesn't address the decline in physical abilities that is seen across my society. I even see it in schools across the 15 years that I've been teaching. I've watched kids becoming weaker and weaker and have worse and worse balance. And that, of course, is translating into adults. You've got to be glad you're not near this boot, because I had a cat piss in this boot, and this boot stinks of cat piss every time it rains. Anyhow, back to decline in physical ability as our society becomes more sedentary. So let's address that. I'm going to talk to you about a lesson I do with my kids that addresses both the balance and the leg strength. We've got a guy walking over here and he's going to think I'm weird, probably because I am weird. Anyhow, what I do is I start up on the toes like this. We do this at the start of every lesson. And I say to the kids, balance helps stop us from falling over. If we balance, hey buddy, how you going? And if we practice balance, we get better at balance. If we don't balance, we get worse at balance. Anything that we don't practice, we get worse at. Have a great day.
Hey, bud.
So after we get up on our toes and we balance, turn this way, then what we do is we gradually go down. I call it a safe, hard thing. At the bottom, we recover. We wait here for a second. I don't call it rest, because rest is different from recovery, but we won't get into that. And then we go up slowly, a second safe, hard thing. Then we put our heels down and we recover. Not many people in society do safe, hard things like that. Yeah, sure, some people go to the gym, but it's only, in my society, only a very small percentage of people do these safe, hard things. Now, what I've noticed is that very few adults at my school can do this. The next thing is actually a scientifically supported measure of longevity and quality of life. This is called the sit and rise test. You cross your legs like this, and then you go down slowly. If you can get down without using your hands, you get 5 points. At the bottom, I say to the kids, we recover. Then what we do is the hardest safe hard thing I say to them in that session. We lean forward and we come up slowly, slowly, slowly. So we talk about different things as we're coming up. Now when we get to the top, we have a bit of fun and we do the, we call it the Michael Jackson. Anyhow, in our society, in my society, in Australia, people are becoming weaker and their balance is declining. I propose that something like that, obviously the sit and rise test, most adults, if you haven't been doing it all your life, you probably will struggle with it. But the first one, this one, is this something you could do while you brush your teeth? Is this something you could work on doing? Maybe you can already do it, and I've got the wettest ass. Could you do that, recover at the bottom, and then come up slowly? Slow builds strength. That's what I say to the kids. Give it a go.
My foster father's observations regarding the reverse Flynn effect are based on current psychological literature reflecting a measurable stagnation in what they call fluid intelligence. By incorporating his idea of safe hard things into his health and physical education classes, he supports students to build a baseline of physical and cognitive competence. Let's hope they keep seeking intentional friction to protect them against society's decaying yardstick. Ultimately, measuring your well-being against a declining societal average is a dangerous metric. By defining your own minimum acceptable competencies, you can insulate yourself from cultural atrophy. Maybe you could try the sit and rise test yourself, or simply stand on your toes and lower yourself down to maintain your current physical baseline. Standing on one foot while brushing your teeth might be a safe hard thing that suits where you're at today. Safe hard things don't have to be that hard, just hard enough to resist the slide. While you're balancing on your toes, you'll see the next episode on the left and those compilations on the right. And please, pick up 5.